Welcome back to our channel. So fans, today is a beautiful day to dive deep into the latest, most intense drama unfolding in Genoa City. We have some incredibly shocking and heartbreaking developments to discuss regarding one of our most iconic and fiery residents, so grab your favorite drink, settle into your comfiest chair, and let us unpack the psychological thriller that is currently playing out right before our eyes on our screens. Genoa City is certainly no stranger to ruthless corporate warfare, bitter historical rivalries, and shocking personal betrayals. But what we are witnessing right now is a terrifying, slow-motion descent into absolute madness. Phyllis Summers, a woman who has historically survived literal fires, vicious blackmail schemes, and the unrelenting wrath of the entire Newman family, is finally breaking. The walls are rapidly closing in on her, and instead of fighting back with her usual fiery brilliance and cunning strategy, Phyllis is retreating into a dark, suffocating, and highly paranoid delusion. After facing a series of devastating, back-to-back defeats, the brilliant architect of her own survival is losing her grip on reality, and it is genuinely chilling to watch her brilliant mind unravel in real time. The primary catalyst for this catastrophic mental collapse stems directly from her recent, highly volatile interactions with her ex-husband, Nick Newman. Phyllis truly believes she had secured the ultimate bargaining chip when she managed to hold the amnesiac Matt Clark captive. She thought she was brilliantly protecting herself and her corporate empire, but Nick's aggressive, furious intervention completely shattered that fragile illusion. When Nick aggressively cornered her, using severe threats of prison and leveraging her highly vulnerable position regarding Newman Enterprises and Matt, Phyllis felt a profound, agonizing sense of betrayal. In her fractured mind, Nick was supposed to be the one person who understood her trauma, especially considering their shared history of being victimized. Instead, his harsh ultimatums felt like a brutal knife to the back, severing her last remaining tether to reason and safety. Compounding this deep emotional betrayal is the suffocating, inescapable legal pressure currently bearing down on her from all sides. Christine Romoldi, her lifelong, bitter nemesis, is back in a position of immense legal power and is practically salivating at the golden opportunity to put Phyllis behind bars for good. Armed with Victor Newman's flawlessly fabricated AI evidence that perfectly and maliciously mimics Phyllis's voice and digital footprint, committing massive corporate espionage, Christine is absolutely relentless in her pursuit. Phyllis knows all too well that the justice system in Genoa City can be easily manipulated, and she feels it is entirely rigged against her this time. The sheer, crushing weight of Victor's endless resources combined with Christine's vindictive, decades-long pursuit is simply too much for any one person to bear, creating the perfect storm of psychological persecution. Unable to cope with these mounting, catastrophic failures and the sudden loss of her leverage over Matt Clark, Phyllis makes a deeply dangerous and tragic choice. She completely and utterly isolates herself from the rest of the world. We are seeing her physically lock the heavy doors of her suite, draw the thick curtains to block out the sun, and shut out the entire society of Genoa City. This intense physical isolation perfectly mirrors her rapidly deteriorating mental state. By aggressively cutting herself off from her daughter Summer, from her best friend Lauren, and from any voice of reason, Phyllis is intentionally creating a toxic echo chamber of her own worst fears and insecurities. She is trapped in her room, pacing the floors endlessly, surrounded only by the haunting ghosts of her past mistakes and the terrifying, looming specters of her current, powerful enemies. The claustrophobia of her environment is almost palpable through the screen, and it is rapidly accelerating her psychological decline. In this dark, self-imposed exile, severe paranoia becomes Phyllis's only remaining companion. She begins to wildly misinterpret every single interaction she has had in recent weeks. In her fractured, exhausted mind, every passing glance from a hotel employee, every hushed conversation in the hallway outside her door, and every unanswered text message on her phone is a calculated, malicious accusation. She genuinely and terrifyingly believes that the entire town of Genoa City has formed a massive, synchronized, and deadly conspiracy specifically designed to destroy her life. The severe trauma of her past, specifically the horrific psychological torture she previously endured at the hands of Martin Gray, seems to be violently bleeding into her present reality, causing her to completely lose the vital ability to distinguish between real, tangible threats and the fabricated nightmares of her own mind. The tragedy of this storyline reaches a truly heartbreaking crescendo when Michael Baldwin bravely attempts to intervene and save her. Michael has been Phyllis's absolute rock, her brilliant legal savior, and her most fiercely loyal confidant for decades. He arrives at her locked door, desperate to offer his unmatched legal expertise and pull her out of the proverbial fire before Christine can finalize the devastating criminal indictment. Michael is fully aware that the AI evidence provided by Victor is entirely fake, and he knows in his heart that they have a legitimate fighting chance if they just work together to expose the technological fraud. He approaches her fortress with nothing but a genuine, profound concern and a sharp strategic mind, desperately hoping to break through the massive, paranoid walls she has built up around herself. However, the version of Phyllis that greets Michael at the door is not the sharp, witty, and resilient woman he has loved as a friend for years. She is frantic, wild-eyed, trembling, and deeply, dangerously suspicious of his every move. In a shocking, devastating twist of severe paranoia, Phyllis outright refuses Michael's desperate offers of legal help. She looks at her oldest, most trusted friend and sees only a malicious traitor. Because Michael has a long, complicated history of working as Victor Newman's primary legal fixer, Phyllis is deceased. Paranoid logic aggressively dictates that Michael must currently be operating as a double agent. She wildly accuses him of being a direct pawn in Victor's grand, evil conspiracy, sent specifically to gather insider intel and intentionally sabotage her legal defense from the inside out. The sheer, undeniable absurdity of this accusation highlights exactly how far gone her sanity truly is. Michael is visibly and profoundly shattered by her cruel, baseless accusations. He desperately tries to reason with her, pleading with tears in his eyes for her to see the truth of his loyalty, but his soothing words only serve to violently fuel her escalating delusions. Every gentle attempt he makes to calm her down and bring her back to reality is instantly twisted by Phyllis into concrete proof that he is trying to psychologically manipulate her on Victor's behalf. She aggressively and physically pushes him away, slamming and locking the heavy door right in his face, effectively and tragically severing her absolute final lifeline to the outside world. Watching Michael slowly walk away down that hallway, knowing with a heavy heart that he is entirely powerless to save his best friend from the terrifying demons of her own mind, is easily one of the most tragic and moving moments we have seen on the show in a very long time. Left entirely and completely alone in her dimly lit fortress, Phyllis descends completely and irreversibly into pure madness. The heavy, oppressive silence of her isolated room is broken only by the sound of her own frantic, continuous muttering. She begins talking out loud to herself, having full, highly animated, and aggressive conversations with the empty air around her. We see her obsessively analyzing imaginary plots, connecting invisible dots that simply do not exist, and building a massive, intricate, and terrifying web of deceit entirely within her own mind. She paces back and forth relentlessly, her hands trembling uncontrollably, her eyes darting wildly around the room as if she expects Victor Newman or Christine Romolodi to physically materialize from the dark shadows of her closet. It is a raw, deeply uncomfortable, and incredibly compelling portrayal of a total psychological break, performed with agonizing perfection. The absolute most chilling aspect of this entire mental breakdown is her sudden, highly delusional shift toward a feeling of absolute triumph. Amidst the suffocating panic and fear, Phyllis begins to excitedly formulate a massive, secret counterattack. She mutters endlessly about how she is going to brilliantly outsmart them all, how she will violently turn the tables, and how she will emerge completely victorious against her legion of imaginary and real enemies. She genuinely believes that she possesses a hidden, unparalleled genius that no one else can possibly comprehend, a flawless master plan that will eventually bring Victor, Christine, and even Nick to their knees in begging submission. This false, manic sense of supreme empowerment is absolutely terrifying to witness because it completely and totally detaches her from the very real, very imminent legal and physical dangers she is actually facing in the real world. Looking at this tragic situation from a deeply personal perspective, my heart absolutely breaks for Phyllis Summers. Yes, we all know she has done some truly terrible, unforgivable things in her past. She has manipulated, lied, cheated, and schemed her way through life in Genoa City. But seeing a woman of her incredible intellect, undeniable strength, and fiery, passionate spirit reduced to a paranoid, trembling, delusional shell of her former self is profoundly and deeply tragic. Her current, shattered state is the inevitable culmination of years of unhealed trauma, severe betrayal, and relentless, crushing pressure from the most powerful people in town. She is a lifelong survivor who has finally, tragically run out of survival tactics, and her brilliant mind has simply snapped under the immense, suffocating weight of it all. It is a true masterclass in daytime acting, but it is incredibly painful to watch a beloved, iconic character lose herself so completely to the darkness. As for the men currently in her life, Nick Newman's recent behavior toward her is incredibly frustrating and deeply disappointing. While it is true that he is currently battling his own severe, life-threatening addiction issues with fentanyl, his aggressive, unyielding ultimatums toward Phyllis lack any basic human empathy for the mother of his beloved daughter, Summer. He actively weaponized her deepest vulnerabilities to get what he wanted regarding Matt Clark. And he must bear a significant portion of the moral responsibility for violently pushing her over the psychological edge. Michael Baldwin, on the other hand, stands as the unsung, deeply tragic hero in this agonizing narrative. His unwavering, fierce loyalty to Phyllis, even when she is at her absolute, most terrifying worst, is highly commendable and beautiful to watch. It is simply devastating to see his genuine, unconditional love and unmatched legal brilliance so harshly rejected by the one person he desperately wants to save more than anyone else in the world. Then, of course, we have Victor Newman and Christine Romalotti, the ruthless, calculating architects of this devastating psychological pressure cooker. Victor's unprecedented use of highly advanced AI technology to flawlessly frame Phyllis for corporate crimes is a shocking new low, even for a man of his notorious, cutthroat reputation. He is arrogantly playing God with people's lives and freedoms, entirely and callously indifferent to the massive psychological collateral damage he is causing to a woman who is already vulnerable. Christine, completely blinded by her decades-old, deeply ingrained hatred for Phyllis, is far too eagerly acting as Victor's willing executioner, completely failing to question the questionable ethics or the actual source of the miraculous evidence handed to her. Their combined, unrelenting ruthlessness is truly terrifying to behold, and it perfectly highlights the toxic, unforgiving, and often cruel nature of Genoa City's elite power players. They are not just trying to take her company away. They are actively, methodically destroying her very soul. So, what exactly happens next in this dark, twisting saga of paranoia and power? I strongly predict that Phyllis's escalating delusions will inevitably lead her to make a catastrophic, highly public, and undeniable mistake. Her imaginary, manic counterattack will likely manifest as a dangerous, erratic physical stunt that not only fails miserably, ultimately gives Christine the actual, undeniable, real-world justification she needs to arrest her on the spot. I also deeply fear that the villainous Matt Clark, who is still lurking dangerously in the shadows of the city, will somehow discover Phyllis's highly vulnerable, fractured state. A masterful, manipulative psychopath like Matt could easily and flawlessly exploit a paranoid, entirely isolated Phyllis, twisting her mind further and turning her into an unwitting, destructive pawn in his own violent revenge scheme against the Newman family. Ultimately, I firmly believe Phyllis is heading straight for a padded room at Fairview Psychiatric Facility, requiring months of intense, dedicated psychiatric intervention before she can ever hope to be stable enough to face a judge in a courtroom. The gripping drama in Genoa City is rapidly reaching an explosive boiling point, and the tragic psychological unraveling of the legendary Phyllis Summers is undoubtedly a phenomenal storyline we will be analyzing and talking about for many years to come. Do you think Phyllis will somehow miraculously find her way back to reality and outsmart the Newmans, or is she tragically destined for a very long, heartbreaking stay at Fairview? Let us know all your brilliant theories and thoughts in the comments below. And please don't forget to share this article with your fellow Y and our fans immediately so we can keep this amazing conversation going.